what day of the week it is. Who knows?
It's a day that ends with a Y.
There you go. So we're so excited to be here on behalf of Coca-Cola Scholars Pro. I am Hilary Corna. If you don't know me, this is Pamit Surana. We are here to talk about the state of business, where that's headed. I invite you, as we start this conversation, to just come from a place of ease and openness. Fortunately or unfortunately, Pamit are optimists, so I think most Coke Scholars are as well. We're here to help. Feel free to send questions along our way as we go about this conversation, but here we're really focused on moving forward. How can we focus on reimagining what business looks like as we know it, cultivating these skill sets around rapid change to really win in business? So we've got Matthew from Houston, Marissa from Vermont. We are all around the country. That's fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started as people continue to join. And we've got a very short presentation for you, a really fun, rapid presentation, since we're going to play along with that theme. And I'll go ahead and pull that up now. Okay. Well, we will pull it up in a moment. Here we go. Just a moment.
And for those wondering, my screenshot in the background is actually one of my favorite pictures that I saw a couple years ago. It is a different way to think of things, and I thought it was appropriate for today as we think about rapid change in whatever organization or place you're at. If you look closely, it's literally just the world map that we traditionally see, but it's rotated 180 degrees, and they put the names in the way you would normally see it straight up. And I thought it was appropriate because it just makes you wonder how many times we look at things as they are, the way we're accustomed to seeing it versus as how they could be. And I thought it would be great today to just share that and to always look at things with a different lens. And that is part of the journey of rapid change, because you have to be open at the most fundamental core level to truly seeing things different and not just accepting them as the way they are. So if you Google upside down world map, there's a whole bunch of these, and it's just stuck with me over the years. So that's my background for today. Hilary.
Anyone else get a tear there? All right. So let's get started. What today is going to look like. Our discussion for the day is how businesses can use rapid change to win over customers post-COVID as we journey towards recovery. So in terms of our agenda, we're going to start with a brief poll to get a pulse on where y'all background is, and we'll share a bit of our background, and then we'll share our top 5 things that we believe need to be considered to successfully execute on rapid change. And then we'll do a rapid Q&A. See where the theme is going. All right, so live poll. I invite you, whoever's comfortable at least, to go ahead and answer the question of which of the following best describes you or your business. So I'm gonna go ahead and launch that polling now. You'll see it come through on your end, and this is live. So feel free to select the one that most applies to you. And on our back end, as you do that, Pamit and I will adjust advice insight accordingly to best acclimate towards you guys.
Yeah, and this will help us as we give examples of some of the change ideas based on the range of audience members that we have today.
All right, so we've got about 3/4 voted, and so far it's 30% small business, 30% nonprofit, government, education, other, and then the remaining 30% is mixed mid-cap, large-cap student.
Okay.
We have one lone student. Welcome, one student. It's okay, you don't need to call yourself out. We're so happy you're here. You are above the curve. That's awesome.
Excellent.
Okay, yeah, so it's about split between 1/3 small business, 1/3 nonprofit, government, education, 1/3 mid-cap, large-cap.
Okay, so balanced group there. Okay.
Okay, so little brief background. We won't go into our really long bios, but if you really love long bios, they are here for you. Pamit, introduce yourself, the short version.
Hi, everyone. For the Coke scholars out there, the original class of '89, Coke Classic, as they call me. Management consultant for the past 15, 20 years, but prior to that was an entrepreneur. I've built and sold a couple of businesses in my earlier days, and then since then worked for Accenture in their corporate strategy practice, and then a turnaround firm called Alvarez Marcel, one of the leading ones in the country. Done everything from multi-billion dollar mergers to helping startups and of course doing my own startup. So I've got the full range for the audience today. Done a lot of work in mid caps. So the advice and the experiences that I'll be offering today will hit across all these areas. Look forward to connecting here. Hilary?
Perfect. For those that didn't know me, my name is Hilary Corna. I'm a former senior executive officer for Toyota in Asia. As senior executive officer, my kind of subtitle was Kaizen leader. For those that may have heard that word before, Kaizen in Japanese means continuous improvement and is what made really Toyota very famous on the manufacturing side of the business. But what we did out of Singapore, which was their Asia Pac office, was we led a team of 10, well, I say we, I'm brainwashed by Toyota still. I led a team of 10 people across these 14 Asian countries to implement these philosophies around continuous improvement into the operations of dealers, which are predominantly entrepreneurs, but obviously led by a corporation. And so I have kind of a lot of experience on the back end in corporation. I kind of went the opposite direction, which is corporate to entrepreneurship, and then really kind of finding the middle in between with mid-cap companies. So I believe what we're experiencing in business right now is this evolutionary shift from process-centric to human-centric. Give me a little shout in the chat, a little star or a high five if you've ever felt like companies have shoved processes down your throat, where you hear something like, the system won't let me do that. And so I basically help companies that scale too fast, fix broken processes, and deliver on their brand promise in this human-centric era that we live in. So I'm working on my second book now, and we're Coke scholars, so we just are overachievers, high performers. And so I'm so excited to be here with Pamit and join forces to provide this value for you guys very real time and ahead of the market. So let's talk about the goodies. When we talk about rapid change, this can be interpreted in many, many ways. So we want to really just dumb it down to the simplified tactical takeaways. So we basically broke it down into 5 things that we think need to be focused on to successfully execute on rapid change. Pamit, do you want to kind of take over from
Sure.
the situation and baseline and
So,
all that up here?
Yeah, thanks, Hilary. So today, for all those who've joined, you've heard many different things around today's economic environment. So we just have some positions here that we can share with you, and then to reinforce really some things that we've seen and are seeing with current clients and how they're dealing with rapid change as they go forward over the next few months and over the next 2 years. So quite honestly, you've heard all the letters, UV, L, Nike swoosh. Our position is just expect the W curve. And what that means is there's a difference between the W curve of an operational view versus the economic recovery. So our conversation today is really about the ups and downs that you have to manage within your business, within your sector, your geography, and the size of business that you're in. So plan on a W curve, and with that, you'll have all the flexibility and the nimbleness that you'll need. The first thing on that is the baseline that you have to believe you can remove friction in your organization to make it happen, period. If you cannot get your organization to believe in this baseline, you're going to struggle in general. And there's an opportunity for organizations to change, and you have many examples that are happening today. So a lot of clients in telecom and wireless, years ago, tech agents had to come to your house to install your modem in your kits. And there was so much organizational friction for installers to say, no, we have to go in-house. Yet today, every major carrier and cable company, 95% of all kits are now being installed by the customers themselves through FaceTime. And you wonder, why was that not possible before? And you'll you can hear all the organizational friction. Well, customers don't want to do it. Customers don't like to do it. The techs want to be engaged in that. They want to be part of the process because there's an organization behind it. So there's a lot of friction in the past that has just absolutely evaporated. And to believe that you can remove friction is going to be key going forward in your organization. It's out there. It's happened, and you all can point to examples of things you said you'd never do. So as a broader statement, if you accept that, then that's your mantra to take internally to your organization to advocate. So all of you on this call need to be those change agents and to remind people that change must happen quickly. And if you're going to be in a W curve, you have to react quickly constantly. So with that, Hilary, you want to add anything? Or
I was just going to say, with 30% of our group here today in government, nonprofit, or others, education included, it's going to be even more of a barrier for you because there are some archaic processes and operations in those verticals. And so you have actually the opportunity to step up and lead this change. So hopefully these next 5 things that we share with you are things that you can take back and start right away.
And then after this 5, we'll do some rapid Q&A just to open it up for all the audience members and to give perspectives. And then, we'd also like to get perspectives of some of the things that your organizations are doing and kind of crowdsource some additional ideas as well.
Yep. So the first thing we want to start with is like embracing the discomfort of imperfection.
Right.
Anyone who's on this call probably loves getting things done. It's very much a trait of Western societies. And we have this kind of rule of thumb, 80-20 rule, right? And so you want to forget the idea of the 80-20 rule right now. And as Pamit and I are kind of saying, move forward with 50-50, maybe even 20-80.
Right.
I had a client just last week say, well, shouldn't we test this and do focus groups? And I was like, all due respect, you don't have time. Before you know it, your competitor is going to come in and steal away your market share. So our advice here is to move forward, be okay that maybe things aren't as good or beautiful or well branded or streamlined and optimized that it could be in a normal state.
Right. And on this point, as you think about the other point we made earlier on the W curve, when you have a W situation and rapid volatility, the best you're ever going to get is imperfect information, and you're going to make a decision. And now the second part of this statement is very important: adjust constantly. That's a new trait for organizations, and that requires a lot of communications and other parts we're going to talk about here. But you have to walk into this new era with the forgetting perfection and this 80-20 rule. Truly go with the 50-50 and iterate constantly.
Yeah, and to that point, as we move forward, this is a perfect segue because we are, unfortunately, to our detriment, we have to react to the inaction or the actions of the government. And so that's another layer that's created some complexity in the business environment, especially in the nonprofit world, that existed in a way less way in the past. And so that is something that's affecting that W curve and affecting the volatility is what the governments decide to do in terms of how it affects our operations.
Right.
And that requires adjustments on our end.
And Hilly, that's a great point. When we talk about recovery, we have to separate what you're reading in the press and apply it specifically to you and your organization. And I think one of the things that we'd like you guys to take away from today is this notion of diversified recovery. So recovery for you and your organization is very different than what you're reading outside. And that again requires an element of rapid change, because what's happening on the outside, whether it's fiscal policy, social policy, economic policy, or what's happening to your customer supply chains, all of those different things affect different organizations in different ways. And so you have to constantly then adjust in a very rapid way with the 20-80 or 50-50 rule. So at diversified recovery, I'd like everybody to think about that and just filter out all these articles and news and stories and apply it to you guys on that specific basis. Sorry, Hilary?
No, that's perfect segue. Pamit, to that point, I love your take on this. So I'll let you take this one over and I'll kind of add on.
Sure.
But I really believe in staying in your lane right now. Don't worry about what your competitors are doing. Just really hone in on your customer. And so, Pamit, do you want to kind of expand on what we mean here?
Yeah, I think all of us have obviously gotten into the whole video part, but if you want to take that to the next section and the next level, start FaceTiming and Zooming a full range of your customers, not just the top 10. So there's two parts to this. One, engage the FaceTime and the video far more than you have in the past. And you almost have a license to do it. So embrace it. And if not, take the leadership on it. Let the other party decline the FaceTime, but at least they know you are making the attempt to connect in a visual way. That is change that is, quote, rapid, because you should start doing this now today. Because what's happening in any one of the organizations of the people that are on here, the notion of in-person connection on a human level is absent now. So the next best thing you have in that we're hearing from clients is this notion of the video. And whether that's the mobile or these laptops that all of us are getting exhausted on, this is the way to connect. And so with that, that requires a different way to be thinking about the situation, because it's going to be this way for the next several months. And so if you fast forward, if you're not going to have that in-person connection that you normally get with a coffee or a tea or at the water cooler, what's the next best way you're going to replace that? It's video. And so that human feedback with the eye contact, with the body language, all of that's going to be critical in any one of your roles, whether it's sales, whether it's internal and you're looking for advocacy or consensus building. The video component is going to be critical. Now with your customers here, as we said, they're looking for a deeper connection with their vendors. So whether you're B2B, B2C, or B2G, the video component is a new thing that many of us should be embracing. I'm doing it now. I would have never FaceTime people before because I felt I want to give them their space. I'm doing it, and I've had literally a 90% acceptance rate.
So what this means pragmatically, as an example, if you're in the automotive industry, switching your appointments from phone to video when applicable.
Oh, right.
Trying to streamline your sales process, adjust your sales process to captivate that video engagement. If you're in nonprofits, you know really well how important the donor relations are. We know really well in the sales cycle that you'll close a sale above 40% via phone versus under 2% via email. Fun statistic that I read just yesterday in Deloitte was that almost 2/3 of consumers today say that they are not only interested in, but are actively trialing competitive products and services. Of those, almost half to expect to continue with the new product. So what that means is, why do we say build trust with customers? Why do we say call them or reach out to them and keep this human component? Is because if you lose trust, they're going to jump ship somewhere else. They're going to donate somewhere else. They're going to buy from their local neighbor because everyone's going local, and they're going to encourage and explore new options. And so you want to hold on. We are in a game of retention.
Great.
Shall we continue?
Please.
All right. So 3. I love talking about this. I'll just start it off if it's all right, Pamit. When people talk about rapid change, one of the things I often see organizations fall short on is establishing a cadence of review. So we take pride over the last decade of trends and buzzwords around the hustle, the grind, 10x, scale up, growth, move fast. And that's a part of our Western values. We love it. However, where I see organizations fall short is the taking a moment to step back and review how things went. Very often things are thrown against the wall, hope one sticks, rather than taking cadence that's in line with your customer to evaluate based on your customer needs and wants. So here, our advice for 3 is that you match the cadence of change that you and your organization are doing to the cadence of change that your customer is. We kind of alluded to this earlier on, but if you're in the restaurant industry, legislation is coming out every day. New states are changing the rules every day. So you should be almost changing every day, if not every week, if you're in that vertical. If you're in construction, that cadence just changes a little bit more latent. Your customer is a little bit further behind. Those bids are probably 6-month long. So the cadence of change here should really match what your cadence of change of your customer is. And to your point, Pamit, earlier, but data is limited. And so what that means is data only tells us so much in terms of where your customer is and their needs and wants. So that's why number 2 is so important, that you have a really strong pulse on the sentiment of your customer. Am I wrong, Pamit? Am I wrong?
You nailed it.
All right. Anything to add there?
No, I think we can move to the next one.
All right. So we've talked about 80-20 rule, let go of perfection. We've talked about getting a pulse on your customer, ensuring that human connection, however you can within your processes, and establishing a cadence to review and iterate. So now we'll talk about 4. To me?
Yes, one of my favorite. Rarely has anyone ever been convicted of over communicating. And people always say they're fearful of it, but yet when you find no one's really been convicted of it, what they are guilty of is not being relevant in their communications. And you want to make the distinction between frequency and quality. So as we think about the change that your organization is going through, aligning with customers and employees and with investors, right, all 3 stakeholders, requires constant communication. And again, great way is video. And delegate down if you can't do all of it. Again, another opportunity for you to leverage and grow within your organization is by delegating and giving to others. Now, the information you get, no different than old school mail, it's junk mail because most of it's not relevant or it's a bill. On emails, when you think of all these emails you've gotten from travel companies, airlines, hotels, they all say the same thing at this point. You're not really looking forward to getting that mail anymore. So you need it to be relevant. So think about that as you're communicating with your customers. Then the rapid change about this is really rapidly changing how you communicated before and the content that you're providing. The content that customers want now is going to be the basics. Again, that sounds simple, but we tend to stray away from it. People say they go back to the basics. You should have never left it in the first place. So the basics, tell them why it's important to them. Tell them what it means in terms of money and time and quality, right? Customers care about, can I get it fast, good quality, and cheaper? Speak to those 3 points, faster, better, cheaper. That's what they want to hear. And of course, you'll add the Corona component, but don't lead with that because I think they all get it by now. And if not, they'll infer it. I think we've passed the point of the COVID contactless component. And so your opportunity now is to get ahead of that and change your comms to address the next part, which is what does it specifically mean to me in getting my goods or services?
So I'd love to hear in the chat, I want you to call out a company that sent out terrible communications in the last 7 days to you. I could share one. I don't want to jump the gun here. If you've received terrible communication, send it in the chat because it's really important to really build alignment and like cohesiveness around this, that this is a problem. I don't know about you, Pamit and Taneo, but on my end, we bulk produce our content and our newsletter was already written for the next 60 days when COVID hit and it literally wiped the whole thing. We wiped the whole thing, and to my detriment, personally, my blogs that I release now, I stay up almost to the middle of the night before I release it, because I pull in data that was released that day. I've referenced case studies that were announced that day or press releases announced that day. I make it so time-bound that it looks like I wrote it that morning. And as a result, my readership's gone up, my clicks have gone up, and so I think that the point here is let's do smarter work, not just harder work. If you're going to release a blog, let's have your open rate at 40%, not at 0.5%.
Right.
And that consumers are not dumb anymore. They could tolerate junk mail in the past, and now you very quickly lose their trust.
And let's get specific for the audience members here. So for communications for large cap, mid cap, publicly traded, you obviously have your investor and your communications out on the broader level, but those clients are also finding an absolute localized conversations, right? Because all these activities that happen that bubble up are all at the local level. And again, again, global companies, not just US,
Yep.
right? Every single city is opening up in a different way, in a different fashion. That again goes back to our comment around communication is key. Because as the pace of change in all these cities is different, communications here has to be constant and frequent and valuable. So on the small business side, that over communication is really going to be with your customers, because you're far more dependent on them, and the ability for them to switch is usually higher than in other cases. So keep that in mind for the different size companies. Is the localized communication is a new structural thing, and the organization has to realign their communication channels internally. Remove the number of approvals required, because if everyone is operating in a 20/80 or a 50/50 rule, the organization needs to absolutely give more delegation and wiggle room. And I think a lot of people actually are good with that and are comfortable with the accommodations being made.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who's working with corporate, I'm sure they'd be excited about that kind of change internally. So as someone who's come from former corporate. 5, let's talk about the last piece. So here, our focus is to move you forward. Retain the customers, generate new business. How you do that? One way, double down on referrals, renewals, repurchase, testimonials, anything that drives from the current advocacy of the people that you serve. They already know you. They don't need to be nurtured. Hopefully, they've already had a positive, good, happy experience. So you don't have to take the time to then go feed your funnel with new ones. That could be donors. That could be students, mid cap, small cap, big cap, large cap. That's funny, big cap. Now more than ever, when you can't build relationship, what does that mean? We can't go out and have coffee. We can't meet new people. I'm personally taking my goal is 1 new relationship from LinkedIn every week for a 15-minute call. That's my cadence that I've established to keep my relationships growing. But because those relationships are limited, really the benefit of your businesses is going to come from your existing stakeholders, the customers, the donors that you've already served. So leverage those. Pamit, do you have anything to add here?
Yeah, I think everybody here has seen this one way or another. When you can't access the physical connection to friends, clients, colleagues, the way to grow your business is through the people you know. And now back to all the other suggestions we've given you here today to rapidly do. When you're going to ask for a referral, it's far easier to do it with a video. You'll have a far better chance to make that connection, to make the ask, to make the request. And it's good if you're doing that by communicating or quote, over communicating with them and keeping them up to date with what's going on. And many of our clients have found when they're trying to cold call in this day and age, it's incredibly difficult. So if you're going to try to grow your business, you want to double down on the referrals. The cold calls, again, will still work, but I think you proportionately will have a higher success rate and more dollars coming from the referrals than you would with the time you're going to spend on the cold calls. Again, we're not saying don't do cold calls. We're saying change the mix so you're higher on the referrals versus the cold call.
Yep. And in my experience, because I come from a background of operations, this can be relayed into your processes. So I'm advising my clients to revisit their core processes at least once a week, high level, around sales cycle and onboarding cycles. You want to not lose a single client. So how can you build asking for a referral into that? Asking for a recommendation on LinkedIn, screenshotting that recommendation and repurposing it through your content. So from a process perspective, how can you build your referral and testimonial requests into your process moving forward so that that's being delivered on no matter who's executing on it? That's just a kind of a fundamental or rudimentary best practice, in terms of standardization and making sure the quality level is there. I received someone who raised their hand, but I think it went away. So if you did raise your hand, go ahead and raise your hand again. We're going to move now to the rapid Q&A.
So hope those tips were helpful, and you see that it connects together a lot of the basics. And so here, we're happy to help answer any questions or perspectives, what we're seeing from our global multinationals to startups and nonprofits and education.
All right, so looks like we've got a couple questions coming in here. The way we're gonna do this is, it's gonna be 30 seconds. Oh, okay, okay, never mind. Jeremiah has our first question. So the way we're gonna do this is Pamit and I are gonna try to answer within 30 seconds or less. So our goal is to get as many questions as possible. And as you can tell, we're quite verbose, so we are going to challenge ourselves to be concise. So I'm gonna set a timer here. And Pamit, the question from Jeremiah is, would you all be able to talk more to serving, not selling?
Serving is thinking about the client first, not about what you have to offer as, as they say, the people who are hawking ware. Serving is about asking or understanding and knowing what the customer needs and providing your good or service to meet that need. And if you can, great. And remember, if you can't, let them know where you can. That's serving.
And since I have 6 seconds, I would add, don't be afraid to go outside of your scope. I've been working with a law firm that had great social media services, and they realized their B2B clients didn't have great social media services. So they created a swift product that they went to market within 5 days, where they basically offered social media services to B2B clients. And now they're monetizing it. Does it make them, their bread and butter? However, no, but they're serving their clients. And it was a need that was specifically asked for by one of them. And so get creative about, like, you might be able to broaden the scope and really elevate your brand by going outside of what you normally do to address a need and pain point of your customer. Okay, so I'm gonna have this 30-second timer. We have Wade's question.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna meet that 30 seconds, clearly.
We're gonna do this. When you say ditch corporate jargon, could you give an example? Don't use technical wording or change the tone from formal to informal. I could talk to this.
Sure.
But I'll let you.
Can you show videos for everyone if they want to ask a video question? Can we open that up as an option too?
If you want to come on, yes, you can.
Great.
How do we do that? I can unmute someone, not video, unfortunately.
Great. Because I can feel people wanting to try one of the top 5 suggestions.
Okay, I'm going to go let Wade, I'm going to find you. Give me a note if you're not comfortable with that. I'm going to find you and go ahead and allow you to talk. That's a weird phrase.
All right. So when you say ditch corporate jargon, yeah, those are, and coming from a management consultant, that's all the multi-syllable transformation, corporation, any word that ends in a TION, all of that. Get rid of that. This is a change that you've already seen happen in the last 9 weeks that most of us have gone through, of becoming more informal. And so when you say process improvement, I mean, a lot of these words, everyone just phases out when they hear that. So just talk in terms of the benefit to the consumer. And as the advice I often give people, talk as if you're telling your mom. And if she can understand it that way, that's the way you should be speaking to clients. Keep it simple.
A tactical piece on this, Wade, if you want to kind of think of a way to categorize or apply an approach, a company out of Boston named Lippincott did a study on human-centric brands. And what that means is it's not people-first companies. It's companies that are taking on human traits. And they've been able to identify 6 in total. Some of those are talk and act like real people. So if you see a phrase like hang tight instead of your assistant is waiting, talk and act like real people, admit your flaws and be transparent. That's an evolution of society and culture that we're seeing that didn't exist in the 50s and 60s with the people first mentality. Another example is empower individuals to be the brand. Let your employees, let your customers talk about what you're experiencing internally, encourage them to be transparent and own that space as well. And another detail is pay attention to the little things. So as an example, on a corporate level, a large cap company, when you go to Starbucks and they sign your name on their cup, you feel really special and you feel like you were treated uniquely. That's an SOP. That's a standard that they decided they were going to make. I don't know if they really do it much anymore, but they were going to make an SOP for their organization. However, that was a way to humanize what's normally a cold, heartless, seemingly commodity product. So those are some of the ways to phrase, and you can take those back. After this, you'll get, everyone who's attending will get a link to some of the things that Pamit and I have mentioned, and one of those will be what these traits are that you can apply. So next question, go ahead and submit it and we'll open up. I think Victor's on. Victor, did you have a question? I just unmuted you. Okay.
Nope, I'm just listening. It's been great so far though, appreciate it.
Hi Victor, so good to see you.
You as well.
So we've got people, I'm gonna give a shout out to some folks, Richard Alt, Noah Smith, we got Wendy on here, Annie, Jamie Levins. What other things are you guys wondering? How can we be of most value to you right now? What's your immediate need today?
Or what are you wondering about as you thinking about your organizations, where you're at? And then also any best practices that you guys have seen of how companies that you've interacted with or things that you guys have done different that you would recommend or share with team members here.
Oh, it looks like we got a question in the chat. Okay, thank you. I've become a tech czar these days. So we have a question from Harriet. I have a question about balancing long-term and short-term responsiveness. In the nonprofit sector, there's a real dire need for short-term survival, but also a need to plan and position for strong long-term recovery options. So Harriet, I'm sure your organization has already considered scenario planning, but I would build scenario planning into your rapid change. So what that means is I'm advising companies to carry out a cash flow meeting once a week for 30 minutes to examine projections versus actual forecasts and projections versus actual plan, and then evaluate the kind of fluff things that you can continue to iterate and the things that you really need to cut. That's one thing you can start doing. In terms of short-term versus long-term, I think creating scenario planning and iterating those from week to week is where you will be able to then adjust and put all your energy and resources to the things that are working and just temporarily postpone the things that aren't. Pamit, do you want to expand on this?
Yeah, I'll add to this, and then we've got a question from Marissa, and then also Tiara. So Harriet, on nonprofits, if you think about what's important to the success of a nonprofit, it has both components of the service to the group that you're helping, but also the importance of being financially sound. And now this financially sound component applies to everybody on this call, whether it's nonprofit or for-profit. The balance, I would say, is err on the side of near term. And you have to take the position that you're looking at an 18 to 24 month recovery of pre-revenue or pre-fundraising as you had on January 1st of this year. So if you plan 2 years out and you make the choices today, assuming you have to stretch 2 years, what you'll find in that analysis and that strategy is you have to really focus now on short-term cash flow, on short-term cost structure, so spending as little as you can, and then making the investments, your balance sheet, on technology, which gives you a cheaper, easier, faster way to deliver what you used to be doing before. So for nonprofits, the answer is, and similar to small businesses and also to large caps, keep cash. That's key. Raise as much as you can. Now, large caps, they pull down on the revolver lines and the credit lines. That's their way of preserving cash and holding on. For nonprofits, focus on what new things you can do to raise revenue. Many nonprofits can become revenue generating in a nonprofit structure, whether it's coaching, teaching, advising. You can raise money in smaller and different ways. You're going to have to innovate on that. But the focus is keep it on the short term. And if you solve that now, your long-term plan will automatically materialize. But you can't focus on the long and expect a short, meaning you can't work on all the long-term activities right now because you'll miss on the short. So err on the side of short. If you ask me to put a number to it, I'd say 75% short-term, 25% long-term. And that 25 is, again, probably going to be from the investments you're making for the short term that'll help you in the long term.
Yeah, totally agree.
We have a question from Marissa. How do you get buy-in across large cap company and amongst leaders to think and act 50-50 or 20-80? Great question. I think the way I've seen consensus building in large caps, particularly in the last 2 months, and then usually the times of the change agents pre-corona, we're simply creating the urgency and then referencing it. Okay, what do I mean by that? If you're trying to achieve a goal of, we need to make a decision so we can get this out by this time, you need to be the one who puts a date and time to the activity. And I think what you'll find is people will just accept that. And that usually becomes the date and the time. So creating the sense of urgency and you assigning a date and time to it automatically forces the decision, which accelerates the decision making and the number of buy-in. 2, I think you also specify who you want to make the decision and limit that set to really the group that needs to be part of it, not the pre-corona consensus building all hands team. Now, when you do that, the important part is for the parties that you're no longer including, that historically used to be in that decision, you do what we also suggested, over communicate. So don't remove them from the process of information, remove them from the process of the vote. That is how you can get a faster change and for them to think, do I really need to do this? No, I don't. I have enough on my plate. And I think if you start to beat that drum, you'll find, more success in that kind of an approach. Sorry, Hilary, I took more than 30 seconds on that, but
I know, I just forgot the timer.
It's hard to beat up bureaucracies of big corps.
we're challenging ourselves here.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Marissa, was that helpful? You can unmute, or did that answer your question? Was that helpful, or do you have perspectives that may or may not work? Because I'm sure 1/3 of our call would be interested in that. That's a really good question.
Yeah, let me open that up. As I pull that up, Marissa, here we go. You are on. Hello, Marissa.
Hello, that was super helpful. Thank you.
Okay, great. So then I think we have one, Hilary, from Tiara.
So we've got a couple more here. Tiara says, any tips for specifically for new small businesses, i.e. businesses that were just getting off the ground before COVID-19? So this is interesting because Pamit and I both have a combination of, the whole spectrum. And from a large cap perspective, to your point, Marissa, to your question, and we can link this to Tiara's question actually, is the people that are in power right now, the quickest way to get them feel your pain is to really get to the heart of why they do what they do. Really appeal to their ego and say, like, I know why you're doing, why you got into this business or why you've spent 20 years with this company, and appeal to their bigger mission and their vision. And then say, for us to deliver on that, for us to really serve our customers. So don't even kind of forget the whole conversation of what the process is or the bureaucracy pertaining to it, and really get to their heart and then say, for that, I need to make this faster, AKA whatever you need. And from a small business perspective, and this is why this is correlated, I love this conversation, this is where I actually think the small business have an advantage over large cap right now, because they're closer to their customer. They're generally more local. They are faster. they don't have as many layers of processes and approvals and bureaucracies that generally limit companies from delivering on their customer needs. Did anyone see this week what Jenny's Ice Cream did? I think it just happened yesterday. I'm confusing all my days. Who knows? Jenny's Ice Cream, give me a shout in chat if you saw this. Jenny's Ice Cream released an ice cream flavor called Sunshine. And the ice cream is gray like clouds. And the tagline reads, "Sunshine for your cloudy day." Do you think any of the big ice cream companies could have done that? Heck no. It's brilliant. No one else can mimic it. It's gonna go viral. It touches to the heart of their customers. Like, who knew? And some people could look at that and say, well, that's an ice cream company. It's frivolous, so they can do that because it's playful. Actually, I think it's the opposite. An ice cream company is a commodity. I mean, how can you innovate ice cream further than it already has been? And so I think that's where my tip for the small businesses is get creative about addressing pain points of your customers that big companies can't. I invite you to kind of tag along to that for me.
Sure. I think for small businesses, I think the answer to this is actually applies to everybody on this call, small, medium, or large. And what I mean by that is everybody is in a new business at this point, right? So whether you're small or large, you have to think of this environment as a new business because you're doing everything new. How you sell, how you operate, how you communicate. The only difference is the number of zeros in your revenue or the number of zeros in the number of employees that you have. So the advice in this situation for small businesses, and again, apply this to the large and medium and nonprofit, you have to be far more uncomfortable with putting yourself out there and trying new things. Go back to the fail fast. Go back to, I'm going to try this. Now, for those of you who know me, know I'm very extroverted and gregarious. I got out of my comfort zone because this is now my second webinar. I would have never done a webinar before, but now I'm doing it. And I would have been the first to be like, I'm social, I get out. So I'm even doing new things because it is a new way to interact with people. I can't go to cocktail parties anymore, so I'm having a cocktail party here with 50 of you.
I don't see any cocktails.
It's 12 o'clock in Australia. Yeah, I can do it.
I actually invited Tiara on to speak. Tiara, if you want to give me context to like your specific industry or product.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you guys for answering my question. That was great. My industry is a little interesting because it's a professional organization. So it's it's between a nonprofit and a small business. It's more like a not for profit, but
like an association. Like an association of some sort?
Yes. And so we were just building and getting off the ground and everything, was launching, and then COVID hit. And so we were kind of, before this, we had plans to start introducing memberships and things that people could purchase to get involved. And so we're trying to figure out which direction do we want to go, because maybe it's just not in there's so many other things that are happening. And so we've definitely taken a turn, and we've started to do a lot of live sessions on Instagram, which Instagram Live has been around for a long time, but we just now, started to participate in that. And so I wasn't sure if there were any other things specifically for businesses that were, about to go through a launch process or, kind of release something. And
yeah. So my advice to clients during this time right now is be more aggressive, be more uncomfortable, and be far leaner than you thought. And the leaner part has to go back to the finances, right? Because if you have to assume you've got to stretch for 2 years, you can't go into this with the same cost structure that you had before. So while that may be a difficult pill to swallow as a startup, everybody's facing that at the same time. Even as individuals, as people living at home, frugality is certainly a theme. And I think that's important. And you're going to see that, right? Large corporations are preserving their cash. They're not going to spend on capital development right now. In fact, you heard that was the first thing that they pulled out when they said they needed cash. They shelved all their capital projects. Small businesses, the same. By the way, individuals were like, I'm not going to do the house extension. I'm not going to go buy the new car. So we're doing that. And that would apply to a small business as well. So unfortunately, go leaner than you thought, but go highly, highly active, engaged, aggressive, if that's the word you want to use, of marketing and putting yourself out there far more than you ever thought. All right.
Awesome.
We've got a couple minutes left. So, and good luck to you, Tiara, on that. As a former small business owner, and Hilary, we get it. We've been there. And fail fast. The worst someone's going to tell you it's a no, but it's a numbers game after a certain point, and you're getting your brand out there. So the payback will come.
All right, we have 2 questions left. From Robert Powers, he said he is specifically in the small education business working directly with families in California. And his question is, do I need to be throwing myself fully into social media right now? Is there some alternative? What a question. Can I take this one, Pamit?
Right.
Okay.
I'm clearly out now, so yeah.
No, I'll be concise here because I really fully believe in what I'm about to say. And I see this a lot. The tool is not the answer. What I mean by that is if we take a step back, small education business working directly with families in California. What are you delivering to these families? What's the value you're providing? Where are your families? Where do they hang out? Where do they best respond to you? What's the most effective way of connecting with them? Then go do that. And if social media is the answer, okay, then engage on social. If social media is not the answer, it might be a private Zoom call like this. It might be email communications. It doesn't necessarily mean that social media is your answer. At Toyota, we would always say, use the right tool at the right place at the right time. You don't want to use a hammer when you need a screwdriver. I do not want to give you more work to do. So my answer to you is not going to be, yes, you should be on social media. My answer to you is this: your relationships, your business, and your revenues is going to be completely correlated to how strong the relationships with your customers are. So to keep those relationships strong and continue to drive value for those families that you serve, find the platforms and mediums where they respond to you the best and go full force there. I really believe in repurposing content. So if it is easy after that, then repurpose that content on your social media platforms, only because it gets you extra reach that is free and fast. I just want to be very clear that the answer is not in the tool. Use the tool where your customers are. Okay, I hope that answers the question. We have one more. Kevin Muzi, going back to your restaurant example, how would you envision navigating B2B sales for sports entertainment with the landscape changing so rapidly in the short term? Very specific. B2B sales for sports entertainment.
Right. So I'll take the B2B part of that. You're going to have to honestly weather out a lot of this just by your sector. And the challenge with that is waiting it out. It's a difficult place to be in. We represent some big sporting companies and companies that sponsor, and what you're finding is it's just going to wait it out. Now, what do you do in the meantime? You continue to engage, you continue to offer, and because they're not buying anything, the best you can do is invest in the relationship and support in kind or investment, or invest into the relationships. To close deals is completely contingent upon your party's financial position, and that's just not out there today in the marketplace. So you're chasing deals that are highly limited, and I think as you compete against other firms, what you're seeing in the marketplace is pricing on services is falling because there's excess supply of companies like you. So again, investing in the relationships is going to be key, and you may have to weather that out with investments of free work, or BD as we call it in the professional services world.
Yeah, and to add to that, in terms of where the opportunity lies, Kevin, I think is in digitization. You know, I think this is where we have so much attachment to what we do for a living, and it's going to be hard to let go of the old way of doing things. But I would challenge you to really like push your comfort zone a little bit into esports or online sports or gaming. Like, what's that pivot that you can make into a business that's actually booming? E-commerce is booming. So could you go into sports merchandise? So like kind of play with that. What within that vertical is digitizing, and how can you take your model and pivot to capitalize on that strategic advantage right now?
That's great advice, Hilary.
Well, thank you, Pamit. I always appreciate
That's
it.
a good one.
Well, we are coming to the end of time. So I just want to say you guys are ahead of the rest. Thank you for being here. Yes, Pamit?
And if there's the remaining Coke scholars on, if there's a way to do a group shot, that would be awesome.
Okay.
Because I know Carolyn and Jane are on. So listen, for everyone else, thank you so much for your time today. And we hope you walked away with at least one nugget of something you guys can do different and change going forward, and change your organizations and continue to grow. So Hilary, if there's a way to do that, that'd be great. If people can just stand for 30 seconds. I think Carolyn was just going to take a screenshot.
Oh man, this is where my tech skills get limited. I'm not sure, since it's a webinar, if I can, show names. Give me 1 second, folks. This is not my unique ability.
If somebody knows, you can tell Hilary too.
Oh, hold on. I think I got a chat from someone. Oh yeah. Can't do attendee video on Zoom webinar. Okay, thank you, Mark Kerwood. Sorry to everyone, we can't do video on webinars.
Thanks, Wade.
Carolyn, we love you. Everyone, we love you. Thank you for joining us, and continue to fight the fight.
All right. Pleasure, everyone. Good luck to you, and keep in touch. Hit us up on LinkedIn, and look forward to connecting again.
Oh, yeah. I have our names here. Forgot about that on the slides. Okay, yeah. We're on LinkedIn. Find us. We're happy to help however we can. Ciao.
All right. Take care, guys. Bye.